This is Resolute and the Resolute Podcast, where we make men better. I am Vince Miller, your host, and today we're in a series entitled The Purpose of Man, and today we're discussing the topic of the consequences of living a purposeless life. Men, welcome back to the program. If this is your first time tuning in, then thank you for joining us. The Resolute Podcast is brought to you numerous times every week. We exist to make men better because we know men today face unique challenges on the quest for godly manhood. Therefore, we desire to help men grow by providing them with a spiritual game plan that will launch them toward being better men, fathers, husbands, and leaders. Because we believe when you make one man better, everyone gets better. For more information on our program for individuals and groups, go to beresolute.org. We have numerous great tools for men on our website, one being our free Men's Daily Devo. It is short, straightforward, and sweet to get in your inbox. Please check it out along with our other resources. And now let's dive in. Today I am joined by Dave Mergens, one of our Resolute associates. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on today, Vince.
You bet. So guys, this week we were discussing our purpose, and this week's challenge video addresses purposes and then the three sub-purposes of man. As we have already proposed, discovering this is a really big question with a three-part answer, right? But today, I want to consider the consequences of not addressing our purpose. So Dave, since we exclusively work with guys and we have seen men struggle through these issues in life, I would assume that you would say that there are some emotional responses that you've seen from men who feel the consequences of living a purposeless life. Is that true or not?
It's very true.
Tell us, what are some of those responses, those emotional responses you see from guys that seem to live this purposeless and aimless life?
Yeah, when a man struggles with purpose, there's one of two responses that almost every man has to deal with. The first one being he becomes very emotionally disconnected, almost depressed or dejected because he's not doing something of purpose in relationship and work and whatnot. Or a man could simply act out and become very angry because he knows he's not doing something that he's called to do and he doesn't know what that is. So he becomes very emotional on the external side.
Yeah, that's excellent. Excellent way to describe it, because I got to tell you, I and you both, we interact with counselors all the time because we work with men. And that's not a put down. That's just literally, that's what happens. And you and I interact with counselors that we refer guys to all the time who hit a state where they're experiencing the consequences of living a purposeless life. And they really have to have time to process it out. And they have these dual responses. Well, I got to tell you that when I talk with my counselor friends about the reasons that guys come to talk to them, often it's because their wife made them go talk to them. And it's usually in lieu of losing their job, believe it or not.
Yeah, the people that are close to the man who's struggling with purpose tend to pick up the most emotional baggage from the man going through the circumstance.
Right, exactly. So, this guy on the other side of this issue is then forced by their wife to deal with a guy who's just lost his job, and their wife can feel the purposelessness in their heart. And so they push them to go talk with someone until they can kind of get recentered. And my counselor friends say that they probably 75% of the counseling appointments they see are because a guy has lost his job. And why? Because his identity was too attached to his vocation, his work, his career, and his success there. And when that's stolen from a man or taken from him or removed from him, it's a painful process of understanding that his identity really isn't based in his work. It really should be based in something else. And so he has those two responses you talked about. He either goes internal with it or external, right? Mm-hmm. He either feels aimless or angry. It's one or the other, and this is what guys deal with. But Dave, let's talk for just a moment about what are the real consequences. I mean, because there are emotional responses, right? But there are also real consequences to living a purposeless life. So forget the emotions for a moment. Just tell us, what are the tragic consequences?
Yeah, it leaves a wake of emotional baggage with every guy that is surrounded by these relationships. I mean, the wife experiences it, the kids experience it, any coworkers, any friends. If a guy feels a lack of purpose, he essentially starts to create collateral damage with people around him, really unintentionally, but it happens.
Yeah, and it is true, because you and I have felt the wake. I like that language, the wake behind the boat of our life, right? The wake of damage that we leave behind us when we're living an aimless life. And it hurts our family, it hurts our kids, it hurts our workplace, it hurts our future. I don't know how many men that I've discovered that live in this sense of purposelessness, and then because of it create collateral damage, like you say, all around them. You know, it makes me think of a couple of my favorite songs through the years, and I think these have become favorite songs of mine simply because they describe the aimlessness that we sometimes feel. So the first one was when I was in high school, actually. It was a U2 song, right? You probably remember this, and it was the song entitled, "I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For." And Dave, I got to tell you, in high school, I can remember, high school, college, I can remember that being one of the profound anthems of my life at the time, because I was constantly looking for something and I couldn't find it, right? U2 for me, Bono captured a feeling in my heart that described how I felt probably through my college years. And I also remember there's another great poet that you probably remember, Bob Dylan, who wrote a song entitled "Rolling Stone." Oh man, that really grabbed my heart too. Now these are two classic rock tunes that have really kind of captured my heart over the years, but they capture a feeling, right? They capture a feeling that I think all men connect with, and those songs became great sellers because it connected with so many people around the sense of purposelessness that we have, right? You have experienced it, and I have experienced it. Now, I will say, Dave, just to be a little transparent here, I think that these moments do come and go, but we do have to press through them because they hurt the people around us. It's not just us that they hurt, it's the people around us. And God calls us to kind of push through them, because when we live purposeless, we're really living aimless lives. And the trajectory of a purposeless arrow or a purposeless bullet can be damaging to the objects that it eventually will strike, right? And we don't want to live life like that. We want to live life on target and on aim. You know, one of the guys that I think about more than anything else when I think about re-aiming or retargeting life, when I think about purpose, is definitively Paul in the Bible. I mean, this is a guy who lived beneath the tragic consequences of living an aimless or a purposeless life until he met Jesus Christ. I mean, just think about his process, right? He thought he was living out his purposes, but when he encountered Jesus Christ, he encountered a new way to live life. And Paul had to go through a difficult transition. I mean, this guy went from hating Christians and killing them, persecuting them, to becoming one after he encountered Jesus Christ face to face. I mean, you just take the story that we talked about last time with wrestling with God and Jacob wrestling with God, and we wrestle with God. Well, Paul had his wrestling match with God like we all do. And in that moment, he got to see Jesus Christ face to face, but it changed him forever. And what it changed was his purpose and his trajectory and his wake. So listen to these words, Dave, and then let's respond to it. They're from Philippians 3, verses 7 through 9. Paul says toward the end of his life, remember now he's in a Roman prison. He's writing a letter to Philippians towards the end of his life. This is what a man with purpose says at the end of his life. But whatever were gains to me, I now consider loss for the sake of Christ. What is more, I consider everything a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord, for whose sake I have lost all things. I consider them garbage, that I might gain Christ and be found in him, not having the righteousness of my own that comes from the law, but that which is through faith in Christ, the righteousness that comes from God on the basis of faith. That is an awesome proclamation. What do you think about Paul's words here?
Yeah, Paul is being a reflective man in this moment. He is not just simply pulling the trigger on the purpose of his life and aiming it all over. He's stopping and he's reorganizing himself. He's reflecting and he's leveling his life at the dead aim spot to where his purpose is needed to be taken.
Yeah, and that aim is centered on Jesus Christ, isn't
Yes.
it? It's totally, I think Paul has discovered in his old age what he wants young men to hear, what he wants you and me to hear, what he wants everyone to hear that's listening to this podcast today. And that is, the process is important, and that is that it begins with Jesus Christ. It's a trite Sunday school answer for kids, right? But it is the right focus, that our aim and our purpose must be on Jesus Christ first, and then everything else falls into place. So Dave, what's the call to action today for the guys out there that are listening to a message like this?
Yeah, the clear call to action today for men is for men to prioritize purpose, to stop, to gather themselves, and to look at what they're aiming at before they pull the trigger, before they aim and level their purpose, that they stop, think about it, and then move forward.
Yeah, because otherwise the consequences are life-altering, right? We have to begin by aiming at the right thing, because the consequences are a family in disarray, a life that's a mess, and living out of divine alignment with Jesus Christ. And Paul is saying you got to do the first thing first. And the first thing first is to focus on Christ and count everything else but rubbish. And when you do that, you live inside the beauty and the reward of purpose. Well, guys, that's the show. Thanks for listening. Gentlemen, as we close, I want to remind you that none of this would be possible without you. Your prayers, your financial support, and your encouragement keep us going. Therefore, we would be honored to have you consider a monthly donation to Resolute. Even a small gift would make a huge difference to men around the country. And through the end of this month, with a gift of $10 a month or more, we will give you full access to our 1-year game plan for men. This will give you access to our web portal and app, which includes lesson videos, podcasts, daily devos, transcripts, and other material to help you grow in your faith as a man of God. This is a full-scale game plan that will guide you through a 1-year process that will pay out dividends in your faith. Just head to the website, beresolute.org, click the word store on the menu bar, and then select donations. All gifts to this organization are tax deductible. Guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this podcast, but please know that the time we spent today together is worthless unless you choose to act on it. So do something today by getting off the bench and into the game, and I will see you right back here next time on the Resolute Podcast.